scene that appears in the finished movie. Here's another piece of trivia about that movie. What's the significance of the moose glasses that Clark and Cousin Eddie drank eggnog out of during the movie? The moose glasses are from Wally.
Welcome to the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer and Bob Price. Now, their show airs nationwide on the My Genre Radio Network, Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Each week on their show, they help authors create books that transform our lives and imaginations. Through radio excellence, they create a unique community resource, one that promotes, connects, and fosters a sense of well-being. Gael and Bob maintain a focus on sharing books, publishing, marketing, and writing solutions. They serve listeners by providing outlets for their creative skills and energies, and they help them flourish in the competitive marketplace. Their weekly show provides intros, writing spotlights, helps you in promoting your book, your writing, your publishing, your marketing tidbits, and much more. Okay, audience, here's Gael and Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Absolutely.
What? You're taking my line.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, you're taking my line.
Well, it's so overused.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So what have you been up to lately?
Well, I learned to water ski in the Mississippi.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
You didn't drown.
I helped my uncle build a boat in the house. And we
That-
took it out on the Mississippi, and we were jumping waves behind towboats, and it broke in half.
You are telling such tall tales.
No, it's true.
When?
Absolutely.
Now,
when it was another lifetime ago.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I read a book.
Absolutely.
Yes, I absolutely read a book. I read a good book.
And what book was that?
It's called Several Short Sentences About Writing. And I want you to know, here's the thing. I haven't been this excited about a book about writing in probably 40 years. Okay? I was so excited about this that I stopped doing everything else and I read this book completely.
Are you that old?
Yeah, and then some.
Oh.
But this book was really good. It's written by Verlin Klinkenborg, and
What did she say?
he.
She?
It's
Well,
a man.
That's the wrong name.
It's a man.
Oh.
But he had a lot to say about writing and how to write.
Well,
And it's
he just wrote
unconventional.
short sentences, didn't he?
And it's unconventional. Stop talking while I'm talking. And it's unconventional. Okay? And I strongly recommend it for people who like to write.
He didn't list any of his chapters.
I know that. That's one of the things I love about it.
So that means random reading.
No, not random reading.
Oh,
Read it. It'll be
okay.
good for you.
All right.
It's good for the soul.
Oh,
So today we are going to be chatting with Ellen Gibson. MARDN-LD is a registered dietitian, homeschool mom of two, fitness instructor, and founder of Square One Wellness LLC. Graduate of Southeast Missouri State University, she completed her dietetic internship with St. Louis University and earned a Master of Health Education from the University of Alabama. Her personal advice for a healthy life goes back to basics. Eat real food, sweat often, drink lots of water, and go to sleep if you're tired. No, you cannot nap now, Bob.
no.
She believes there is no magic to a healthy life, and establishing healthy habits at a young age is essential. She is the author of 2 cookbooks, the BLW Baby Cookbook and a Whole Food Baby Food, and specializes in infant and family nutrition. Welcome, Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
So actually, I want you to know, I want you, Bob, to know that I met Ellen at the Cape Girardeau Library Book Fair. I think it was March? April?
Was it that long ago?
I don't remember.
I think it was September.
Was it September?
Yeah,
I believe
September
so.
was the book fair.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Time flies when you're having fun.
You forgot where you are.
Evidently,
And
absolutely.
when you were there.
And when I was there, yes. But it was really a good book fair that we did, and that's how I met Ellen and talked to her about coming on our show.
Well, that was a great thought.
I
Yeah.
thought so too. How did you get interested in becoming a children's dietitian? Actually, I don't deal with anything shorter than me when it comes to people. I mean, if it's shorter than me, no. So
What about your dog?
I don't have a dog.
Well, see, that's why you eliminate anything shorter than you.
There you go. How did you get interested in being a children's dietitian?
Yeah, absolutely. I
See?
sorry, it's contagious now. I graduated from completed my internship from St. Louis University, and then I was while I was in my rotations here in St. Louis, we had a lot of cool opportunities to see things in dietetic fields that were not available in the Cape Girardeau area. So I actually had several rotations in school food service, and I was out at Fort Zumwalt for several months working with the students there, and started doing nutrition education in the classrooms and planning the breakfast and lunch menus at the schools in Fort Zumwalt. And through connecting with other food service directors, now that position is required to be either some type of chef or dietitian to have that food service management role. So in those working and going to different conventions and things with other food service directors, I came across somebody from Cape that was looking to add a dietitian to their staff. So right out of school, I had a job waiting for me back in Cape. So I was ready to move back home and then start working in school nutrition. So that gave me a good avenue because at that age, I didn't have any children myself, but I got to start seeing a lot of kids in school and seeing a lot of really picky eating as I would design those breakfast and lunch menus. I would do a lot of grant writing to get different fruit and vegetable programs in the schools, taste testing services and things like that. So I go in the classrooms, bring food to kids. And I remember one day I brought fresh blueberries. In February is National Blueberry Day. And so I brought fresh blueberries to a classroom of, I think, second graders. And some were really eager to try it, and others were really scared to even try a fresh blueberry. It's not like I brought them something exotic like, I don't know, octopus
Like
or
a
something like that.
kiwi.
Even those are pretty standard. But yeah, so many kids were really scared to try anything different out of their norm, out of their 5-10
Wow.
foods that they like. So that kind of snowballed my thought process of, this is just kids, aren't they just inevitable to be picky eaters now? Is that just how the generation is going? And so after my own daughter was born, I started to dig in a lot of research to figure out, how do I prevent that? How do I not have a child that's
picky
scared
eater.
of blueberries? So that's kind of what springboarded my interest in infant nutrition.
And you started this way back in college. I mean, you were
Yeah.
kind of
Just out
piqued
of
your
college?
interest in, right?
Mhm.
You
Okay.
piqued this whole idea of being a nutritionist.
Yeah.
Was from college.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I decided to become a dietitian actually when I was in high school. I had a project for FCCLA, the Future Career and Community Leaders of America. We did a research project and to find about career investigation. And so I learned about a dietitian, that there was a person that could help people learn to be healthy, how to exercise. And that was things I love to do naturally. So I just decided, I think it was my sophomore year of high school, that that's what I was going to be. And it just took all the steps from that point forward to make it happen. And it was just a most natural, easy, not easy academically, but easy with that passion to have, because it was my interests were what I did for fun all the time anyway, was learn how to cook healthy recipes. And I like to move. I like to teach workout classes. And so it was just very natural progression.
How did you? Well, I guess you explained a little bit of it. How you specialized in children's
Mhm.
health.
Mhm.
But I mean, but you also said that you're doing. You told me earlier you were doing fitness classes.
Yeah. So they both go hand in hand really well. To have that picture of what does a healthy lifestyle look like, you can't have diet without exercise. You have to have both of those for an overall healthy lifestyle. So also in college, I started, while I was taking my path steps towards becoming a dietitian, I also became certified to teach fitness classes. So I did those hand in hand, and that adds a lot of marketability for yourself when you're looking for jobs, because a lot of the places that employ dietitians also employ fitness instructors, especially when you're talking for different fitness facilities and health and wellness centers. They're looking for that twofold hire. So I can also be a dietitian on staff, but then also step in and teach fitness classes when needed, or other way around, teach fitness full time and then PRN as a dietitian as needed as well.
So you have 3 jobs.
I have lots of jobs. I have more than that. But as you start to do one thing, so I worked full time in the school service, doing that food service management for about 4.5 years. And then my daughter was born. And so I actually decided she was a lot of trouble to get here. During pregnancy, I have something called hyperemesis. So you're sick the entire time and you throw up nonstop, like 20, 30 times a day, for months, forever, the whole 9 months. So, and I was very, very sick. I lost 20 pounds in a month. So you're a dietitian and you have malnutrition. And so she was a big hassle to get here. So after she was born, I decided to stay home full time. And that's where my career kind of made a switch, because I had the opportunity to get all those, at least 3. Now it's actually, I think 5 to 7 jobs now that are all part-time, because I'm full-time home with my kids. So that opened the opportunity to have a lot more flexibility and freedom when someone reaches out. Would you like to write a cookbook? Yeah, I can. I have that availability now to do, and to kind of build my career, put those pieces together as I want to.
How important is it to be a nutrition role model for kids?
I think it's probably one of the most important things you can do, because we're raising the next generation completely based on what they see us do. And so we have to lead by example, because they're trying to copy us all day long. The things we listen to, the actions, the negative responses we have to our peers, they're mimicking and learning about the world around them. So based on our food conversations that we have, how they're watching us eat, are habits that they're going to replicate. So we want to really make sure that those are good things that we want to be repeated, because you'll see that repeated. And there are some days when I say, oh no, she repeated that. That's not the thing I wanted her to repeat. And then it gives you a good self-check to think about, okay, what message do I really want to send to my kids about food and about the food we eat?
How do you teach kids about nutrition? I mean,
Yeah.
I have a kid. Well, he's 34 now, but whatever I cooked is what he ate. That was that.
Right. So you did in one form or the other. So now my focus with Square One Wellness with this business, I have workshops that I teach once a month. And then I also do private sessions in home. And so we're really capturing babies under this baby-led weaning feeding philosophy. So that's what that BLW stands for. So we're catching babies. The ideal time to introduce them to solid foods is after they're 6 months. Okay. So this feeding process skips any traditional pureed foods and waits until they're 6 months and they're developmentally ready to feed themselves. So we're waiting to put baby in a high chair, let them pick up pieces of food, bring them to their mouth, manipulate it in some form, and they're feeding themselves. So research has shown that this is really beneficial in preventing picky eating, because they're introduced to a lot of different textures early on, and then lots of different flavor profiles. They're learning how to eat from the family table pretty much at day 1.
Okay.
Yeah. So that benefit is I'm not really having to teach them anything. It's the amazing process that most babies can really just do this on their own once they're given that opportunity. It's just self-feeding is just like another developmental milestone, just like learning to crawl or learning to walk. As much as we want to put our baby on their belly for tummy time, we can't make them crawl. We have to give them that opportunity to get stronger and to practice. And we can't make them eat. We have to give them that opportunity to pick up the piece of food and maybe drop it, or pick it up and maybe it goes to their forehead, maybe it goes to their ear, but they're going to find their mouth. And so we're just waiting until they can do it themselves, and as a part of those developmental milestones.
So you just let them kind of play with their food in their tray there.
It gets a little messy, but it is really cute. Yeah, absolutely. So anything that goes into their mouth, they're self-feeding themselves.
Can you share some memorable success stories with?
Yeah. So I've started doing these classes in 2018 in February. So my first group of kiddos all turned 6 this summer. So I've worked with
6 years old.
6 years old. Yeah. So I've worked with hundreds of families in the Southeast Missouri, up to St. Louis, to Southern Missouri area, for hands-on workshops. So a lot of the kids I was actually had a class a couple of months ago, and one of the moms there was there with her own infant, but she was a early childhood teacher, and the other girl there was also had a child in that early childhood program. And so they were talking. She's like, oh, or her nephew, I believe it was her nephew. Your nephew's in my class. Oh, he's the best eater. He always brings such interesting leftovers for lunch, and he'll eat anything, and he's so receptive. And I just sat there and I was laughing in class. I said, I promise I didn't pay her to come here to talk about the benefits of this. But yeah, so really we talk a lot more. We're teaching these kids how to eat whole foods. So we're trying to avoid mostly packaged products. We're learning that this is what real food looks like. A tomato, when you pick it up, it's going to squish and explode with flavor. Spinach is going to taste kind of bitter because that's what it's supposed to taste like. It's not supposed to taste like spinach plus bananas, because as adults, do we ever eat spinach and bananas together? Probably
No.
not. But in baby foods, they're always combined in really odd combinations.
Yeah.
So we're avoiding all of that. We're teaching them what their food looks like, that there is texture, that there's variance in flavor sometimes. Sometimes you get a really sweet strawberry. Sometimes the strawberry is kind of sour. That there's always variance in their food, that flavor profiles are different, and that's just their norm. There doesn't have to be kid food and then all of a sudden there's grown-up food. There's just food. So that the kids' plates, and we talk about a lot about strategies on how to deal with that when they are starting to become more independent in their decisions and pushing back a little bit, and you get to those picky eating phases. How do you deal with that as a parent?
How do you deal with them?
it? So there's a really cool or interesting philosophy called the division of responsibility. It's developed by Ellen Satter. She's kind of the guru in the infant feeding world. And we get into the root of what are your roles as a parent in meal times, and what are the
Right.
roles of the children during meal times. And so as a parent, it's our job to decide what foods are offered for our children. So many times you'll hear someone say, where do you want to eat? And they're like, Chick-fil-A every time. Kids can't make that decision of what food they want to eat all the time, because that's a really broad question. They could answer that, okay, I want donuts. Okay, they don't understand basic nutrition, that we can't have donuts every meal. If we
Right.
want, that's the literal fuel for their bodies. They're tiny little bodies. If we built their body with rusty nails, they'd be a rusty nailed adult, So we have to
Right.
make that educated decision. Well, you can have a food choice within. Would you like a green beans as your vegetable or broccoli as your vegetable? We're having a vegetable either way. Okay. So we decide as parents the what, when foods are offered. We plan in snacks. We plan in our meal times. We also plan where our meals take place, that we're all at the kitchen table together. Sometimes I plan that we're all sitting in front of the TV together. We make those decisions, but it's up to the child to decide of the foods offered, which ones they would like to eat, and then also how much food they're going to eat at that mealtime. Okay.
Okay.
So there's
that's
no
how Parents
negotiation.
can really help
Yeah.
their child to
Right.
learn.
Absolutely. You establish those guidelines that this is our norm. I decide what, where, and when, and you decide what and how much. We're not going to offer substitutions, but if I've prepared this meal for you, you can have as little or as much of it as you would like. And the child can learn to trust the parent that mom made everything that we're having for dinner tonight to have as little or much as I want. There's not a certain food that, you get, high praise for eating all your broccoli, but please don't eat all your mac and cheese. That sends mixed messages to our children. They need to be able to trust that whatever we offer to them, that is good for their body.
Right.
So, what challenges do you face in pediatric nutrition? In other words, and how do you address those? How do you handle those? Are the challenges with parents or children?
A lot of times it's the parents. I also do some work with Missouri First Steps. So it's the early intervention program. I kind of see clients on the side. And so I see some really problematic feeding. That's a very different demographic than the parents that are coming in for my private kind of coaching. And so we see some really severe, I've had almost 3-year-olds who maybe are more on that nonverbal side, and they just drink maybe 4 or 5 Pediasures a day, and that's all they eat. But usually when you get down to the root of how that family structure is, most often the parents don't eat. There's no one in the home that's modeling healthy eating. They've never sat at the kitchen table before. It's covered in books and magazines. they're just in front of a TV playing video games all day. So the parents are the biggest influencers of how our kids learn to eat. If mom is up cooking or doing other things during the entire mealtime and not sitting down engaging with the kids, they're more likely to be picky eaters. Or if you're eating on the run, or you make the kids a meal and then you're going and doing other things and you don't have that family unit at meal times, those kids usually really struggle because they're not getting those sub benefits. Yes, we eat because we're hungry and there's nourishment, but there's so many other reasons that we eat. When we think about holidays, you're eating to be with the people around you. So there's so many good pieces of food
It's
that
the
kids
family
miss out.
connections.
Yeah, and
That's
those
a
bonds
big
that are
piece of-
created
yes.
really help stimulate not just the appetite, but just the positive mealtime environment.
You're listening to The Author's Edge with Guy L. Freer and Bob Price, coming to you weekly on Saturdays at 10 a.m. on KWRH 92.9 and KXOK 102.9 FM, and Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. nationwide on the My Genre Radio Network. So,
You have-
Bob, do you have marketing tidbits?
Bob, I think you might.
Yes, I think I have.
5 more ways in
Yes.
which to promote.
Yeah.
You've already given us 5.
Well, if you go online, you can download the whole list.
Oh,
It
there's
actually-
a list.
It came from a list of 47 ways to
Oh
promote.
my goodness gracious.
There's 5 more ways you can promote your book. Cross promote your book with another author. So find an author, either if you're in a writer's guild, find somebody to pair up with, and you can cross promote your books. Bundle your book with another product, service, or a book. So I'm wondering what the other product would be. Well,
With
I
a
guess it could be, if you're promoting cookbooks for nutrition and children, it could be maybe you get a partnership with Gerber's.
Or you could maybe even do like a little toy that goes, if it's a children's cookbook, like a little broccoli toy or a little something like that a kid could play with.
A broccoli toy?
Yeah, like a fruit and vegetable toy of some
Oh,
sort.
Okay. I keep thinking
mean,
about this giant blueberry that that attacked this poor child. All right. Another way is you can create a webinar.
Okay.
And webinars are actually pretty easy to put together. So you don't have to be on camera or anything like that, but you can go on Facebook, promote your webinar, and put it together and promote your book.
Okay.
Launch an online course. So if you've got good material, a lot of material, and people are interested in a subject matter. Fact is, I'm trying to put together my first course online.
You are?
Yeah, for real estate sales.
You didn't tell me. You didn't tell me this.
Well, dear, I'm breaking the news to you now.
You keep secrets from me?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And you can enter writing contests. So the writing contests are really kind of cool. You can, if there's contests you have in your guilds or in a state contest, you can run across all kinds of contests that
Yeah.
you can enter in contests on fairs, authors fairs, writing fairs.
Are there such thing as writing contests for cookbooks?
Sure.
Really?
There's a lot of online contests. I see a lot on Instagram, like submitting
Yeah.
recipe contests and things like that. So if you had one, you could send up your own.
That would be interesting.
I know
to do.
Pillsbury does like a Christmas cookie contest every year for anybody who submits the best cookie
I wonder if
recipe
they
of the
do them
year.
for
I want to
your
be a judge.
for your that would be a lot of fun to be a judge for that.
Yeah.
It would be a judge. I wonder if there would be something for what you do. I wonder if there's anything for that.
I haven't done my own research on that, so
Would be
That'd be
interesting to
interesting.
see.
check in on this 5
Sure.
tip list.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I would wonder.
I guess we have 2 more minutes.
We have 2 minutes. Well, we could really even do our commercial breaks in about 1 minute, or we could do our commercial breaks now. How about that? Let's do our commercial breaks now, and then we will be back to Ellen, and we'll talk more about BLW and her cookbooks.
Okay.
Let's do it.
The United States has a strong tradition of welcoming newcomers and refugees. The Welcome Corps is a new service opportunity for Americans inspired to welcome those seeking freedom and safety, and in turn help strengthen their own communities. Welcome Corps is a public-private partnership that is inspired by what Americans represent to so many around the world, a beacon of hope and refuge. All it takes is a helping hand. Are you ready to learn more? Contact the International Institute of St. Louis at info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090. That's info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchata and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open 7 days a week. El Potro, 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland.
In 1857, the Dred Scott decision was a major legal event and catalyst that contributed to the Civil War. The decision declared that Dred Scott could not be free because he was not a citizen. The 14th Amendment, also called the Dred Scott Amendment, granted citizenship to all born or naturalized here in our country and was intended to overturn the U.S. Supreme Court decision on July 9, 1868. The Dred Scott Heritage Foundation is requesting a commemorative stamp to be issued from the U.S. Postal Service to recognize and remember the heritage of this amendment by issuing a stamp with the likeness of the man Dred Scott. But we need your support and the support of thousands of people who would like to see this happen. To achieve this goal, we ask you to download, sign, and share the one-page petition with others. To find the petition, please go to dredscottlives.org and click on the Dred Scott Petition Drive on the right side of the page.
One of the things, Ellen gave us a quote that we wanted to talk about. And the quote is, "This isn't a textbook or a technical manual. It's written from the perspective of two moms to other moms and dads, answering some of their biggest questions beyond the basics. As a parent, you have plenty of concerns, but introducing your baby to a lifetime of healthy, happy eating doesn't have to be one of them." Kind of explain that quote and how it was important to you. It was on your website.
Yes. So we wrote the cookbooks. So I myself wrote the cookbook along with a friend, another registered dietitian. Her and I both were stay-at-home moms at the time.
What's her name?
Laura Morton.
Okay.
So we met working in that school food service. She worked for the St. Louis Dairy Council and was my kind of connector to write a lot of those grants to get new foods in the school services. So we became good friends through that connection. And so when I was approached by a publishing company based in California asking me to write a cookbook on baby-led weaning, I said yes, but I have a newborn. So the timeline was about 6 weeks to put out the book. So that's a quick turnaround when you got a baby. So I reached out to her and I said, she's really great with recipes and was already interested in this baby-led kind of weaning world like I was. And so together we worked on the books. And so we wanted to write the cookbooks. They're kind of the beginning of the books are both manuals kind of on how to do this feeding approach and common questions that parents might have. And then the latter part of the book is all recipes. So there's about 90 recipes. So we took the content that we were writing and we wrote that as from the perspective of a parent to parent. So we wanted it to be casual conversation. We didn't want to read like a medical journal or anything like that. We wanted to use basic words, conversational words like squishy toes and just the cuteness of the babies.
That was one of the things I noticed was the different words that you used for some of the characteristics. What was it was squishy toes and things like that.
Just kind of how you would talk to another mom and to kind of relish those little sweet moments and to kind of get that into character as really personal. Yes, we're giving you advice, but we're also there in the trenches with you. We're mopping up our dirty floors from a baby dropping their cup of milk or whatever it is, that we've been there too. So you have that much more relatability versus we're not telling you what to do because we're some sort of high and mighty status. That yes, we do have credentials and support for that, but we are also doing this every single day with you. We understand that it's hard,
We're
but
in
it
the
can be
trenches.
done. Yeah.
We're in the trenches.
Mhm.
Well, I grew up in Southern California, and I grew up on avocados. And avocado and mayonnaise sandwiches are here to stay, I'm telling you.
Well, I grew up in New York, and
Yeah.
we didn't
Poor
have.
thing.
Yeah, we weren't eating avocados in New York when I was growing up. So
No.
I started to learn to eat avocados when I met him in Key West. And that was in 1986.
Wow, that's still pretty early for an avocado.
So yeah, I was not eating anything exotic. On the other hand, I was raised with a French mother when we were eating escargot and pâté. So
Processed foods.
no, it was not
No.
processed foods.
Oh,
Have you ever read the book French Kids Eat Everything?
Yes.
That's one of my favorites.
really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And French kids do eat
They
everything.
do.
They
Yeah.
do. That was one of the things I was thinking about when you're talking about your book,
Mhm.
is the fact that if you look at what French children eat in school
Mhm.
compared to what American children eat in school, they sometimes you'll see it on Facebook, the pictures of what American children eat in schools
Mhm.
and what French children eat in school.
Yeah.
It is a world of difference.
Do they get a glass of wine with meal?
No, they don't get a glass of wine
Oh.
with meal.
Oh.
But here's what they do get.
How is that different?
They actually
Why is that different?
Culture, the whole work and day schedules are different. Actually, in college, I took a trip and we went and toured a school in France and Germany, and we got to eat school lunch. I got to go to a school.
and I'm going to let you explain the difference.
And I ate school lunch in France. It was a really cool process. It was a UI 400 class through Southeast Missouri State University, and we were overseas for 2 weeks. We went to France, Germany, and Switzerland, and we toured a different fitness center, and then we went to school and got to see all the students and go through the lunch line. Yeah, it was very different. I think we had a salad, we had a slice of brie, there was a baguette, we had water to drink. I'm trying to remember, there was some type of protein. I have a photo somewhere on my Facebook from 15 years ago. But just the whole environment of culture around food is so much different. Here, we're eating food either because we have to, or you're avoiding it because you shouldn't be eating food. There's no joy in food. There's no life in food and how we view food. It's a kind of a hassle. Most Americans are trying to avoid food, and the other ones just don't care. And there's no bliss or appreciation. It's how quick can we get this over with, basically. And so just that mindset, you don't appreciate that the process of cooking food, of doing it together, all of those pieces are gone, and they're not just because of our busy lifestyle that we've created that seems to theoretically be better.
How do you teach parents, I guess, really parents,
Mhm.
to build that joy in food?
So you really have to just make it a priority. And it's hard to do, and not every family is going to be able to take that on, but it really is an essential part, because it's something that your kids are going to do every single day forever. And food is such a personal piece that we don't want to teach unnecessary emotions of shame and punishment associated with food. So it really is something that kids need to see early on. And I think that the quicker that you can get a child in the kitchen with your parents, the better. And a lot of times when I see more picky kids, and I try to do consulting with families, most of the time that the kids are spent in the kitchen, if they do get the chance to help out with the mealtime, it's usually, okay, today we're going to make cookies. It's some kind of special sweet treat.
Oh, wow.
And that's the special times that they get to spend with their parents. And so, yes, kids love cookies, but they're also looking for that bonding time, and cookies may be the only time they get to do that.
Right. They don't sit and make mashed. See, in my house growing up, my mother we were in the kitchen making supper every night.
Right.
So
Mhm.
if we were having chicken and mashed potatoes and salad, we were making the mashed potatoes, and we were making the chicken, and we were making the salad, and we were, whatever was being made for dinner, my mother and myself and my sister, we were making dinner. And then
Right.
after dinner, we all helped clean up,
Right.
and we all sat down to the table together. And
Mhm.
that was that. The only time that we ever had quick food, which was a pizza, was if my father wasn't going to be home for dinner.
Mhm.
The only thing I've ever done is taught my dog to eat baby carrots. So my dog sits at the refrigerator and begging for carrots. But
I'm not talking to you anymore.
I don't know how that's helpful to this conversation.
Yeah, that is not helpful whatsoever. But I will say this, in France, when children sit down at a table, they, first off, lunch is more than 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's
Oh, yeah.
part of the problem here.
Yeah.
Second part of the problem is they sit down with a real plate, not a plastic plate,
Mhm.
with real utensils, not plastic utensils. And they
In
all sit
school?
down in school, and they
Yeah.
all sit down, and there's like maybe 6 or 7
What?
people at the same table. It's circular,
Mhm.
and they all talk to each other.
You don't allow them to brown bag it?
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Ellen is very much on target. It is a mindset.
Yeah.
Eating is for the pleasure of eating and conversing and interacting with each other.
Right.
In the United States, we eat because otherwise we starve to death. That's the reason why we eat in
Right.
the United States.
Did
And
it-
that's the problem.
What else can we be doing while this is happening?
Exactly. So we brown bag it at our desk so that we can get work done.
Right.
Okay. If you're a classroom teacher, you're getting lessons done, or you're grading papers, or you're doing something else and you're shoving something in your face.
Mhm.
That's what happens.
Right. Yeah. It's not prioritized. So
It's not.
teaching our kids to not replicate that. And there's going to be some nights where you don't have time, especially when they get into athletics
Sports,
and all that
right.
stuff. And so then you have to prioritize, okay, what's more important, them learning how to play baseball that they might do for the next 4 years, or being at home and learning how to be an adult that they're going to do forever. You're going to be on your own, making your own meals at some point.
Right.
So the earlier that the kids can start learning to do that. And so I find that it's very helpful to get the kids in the kitchen. A lot of times, and I make sure that they have their own equipment at home. I have a 6-year-old and I have a 2-year-old. So they both cook with me. They both argue about cooking with me. So if one is helping and the other one's not, it's a big fuss. So my 2-year-old, I have to give him things that he can do in the
Wow.
kitchen. So the other day he was chopping up mushrooms for me. I said, "Are you going to eat these?" And he said, "No, don't like them." I said, "Who are you making them for?" And he said, "Dad." So I know that's not one of his favorite foods, and I don't expect him to love mushrooms because not everyone does. That's
Right.
a different flavor profile, and that's totally okay. We don't pressure him to eat that food. But the more, he's also only 2. So there are many things in his life that's going to change. And so the chance for him to interact with that food without having pressure of eating it, I'm not forcing him to eat those mushrooms, but he wanted to help me chop them up. So I give them, they have their own cutting boards. They have their own soft children's, careful knives, so they can cut up and any foods that I'm doing. Now, when they're younger, I'm probably not going to serve those mushrooms that he's cutting up because he's 2 and he's dropping them on the floor and he picks them back up and he cuts them, but no harm done. I gave him all the stems. I was making stuffed mushrooms, so they were an extra piece, but he feels really engaged in the cooking process. He's not pressured to eat those foods, but he's comfortable working with those foods.
The only thing I learned was how to make avocado sandwiches. And that's probably my problem today.
Here's the other thing. But you
Yeah.
also came from a generation where little boys were not taught to cook. Little
Boy,
girls were taught to cook.
yeah.
I know that in my house,
Very true.
my brother was not taught to cook.
Mm-hmm.
Myself and my sister were. My brother was taught to take the garbage out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that
Right.
was also a generational thing.
Yeah.
All right. And that also needs to be kept. Your
So-
son is being taught to cook,
so how
which
is
is your
that-
generation, which
how
is
is that
excellent, by the
different
way.
in
Right.
France than here.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, is it because boys are more involved in the kitchen?
Yes, they are.
I would say overall too, and just the whole home process, everyone's more involved.
Because food is more of a part of life activity than it is in the United States.
Well,
It's
Ellen-
just the
Ellen-
way in which we look at things.
Yeah.
It's not a good or a bad or a right or a wrong.
Right.
It's the way in which we look at things.
Right.
All
There are
right.
other things we do really well as a nation that
Right.
we're not going to replicate, so
right.
it's,
Right.
it's just a different,
it's just the way in which we look at things.
but I
you
think it is really beneficial on how their view of food is. And,
Healthier.
Right. And you can just see that based
well,
on
it's
the,
interesting what you explained about how you train your children, or
Mhm.
I wouldn't say train. It's really
Teach.
engage them
yeah.
to
Engage.
learn and have fun with food.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing is that, your son may not like mushrooms right now, but tastes change as you
Oh,
grow too.
Absolutely.
And he, as an adult, I didn't like sauerkraut as a kid, but I love sauerkraut now.
Right.
So your taste change as well.
He still eats rocks and leaves and, so I can't really trust his taste buds right now. Boogers are number 1 on the chart. So
A 2, yes.
let's be honest.
Absolutely.
We can't trust that all his taste buds
I have a
are.
real fascination with dirt myself.
You'd be surprised of all the things he's given me out of his mouth.
Yeah. Spit it up, kid.
Well, what
Right.
is BLW?
That is baby-led weaning. So that's that non-traditional introduction of solid foods when baby shows interest and then signs
And that's
of
at
readiness.
about 6 months old.
Usually around 6 months. That window can be pretty large, so we think of that as that developmental milestone whenever they can do it themselves. Some babies are closer to 7 months, can even push to those 8 months. It just depends on gestational age and then just overall development of the child.
So how's it different from traditional infant feeding?
Yeah, so traditional infant feeding would be starting with puree foods, even though the Academy of Pediatrics recommends the introduction of soft solids after 6 months. Both the Academy of Pediatrics and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics recommend exclusive breast milk or formula for the first 6 months of life. Still, you hear very often at pediatric appointments that they say, okay, your baby's around 4 or 5 months old. You can start introducing different purees and rice cereal and those kinds of things. Now, those recommendations, more pediatricians are getting away from that because it's actually against their recommendations as an organization. But a lot of times, especially young moms or moms of my generation that have older moms, because the previous recommendations were starting. My grandma wrote in my dad's baby book, Doug, 3 days old, rice cereal. And he was 3 days old. And now that would, shock many of us. But in the 60s, that was not
When I
unrecommended.
was an infant,
Mhm.
my mother used to put sugar in the water for my bottle.
Right. And so now we would say, why do you have a bottle of water? Infants shouldn't even have a bottle that has water in it. So
Right.
we've learned a lot of things with food and science specifically. So recommendations are changing. So more and more people, that social norm is becoming more of that baby-led weaning. And it's not a concept that I just invented and created. It's been around for many years. And generationally, when you talk back to great grandparents, in the early Depression years, when could a baby eat before Gerber existed, before 1920s? How did children survive for the last hundreds of years? There was no baby food. There was no pureeing. There was no jars and spoons of things. Well, when they could eat from the family
wasn't?
table, they could.
Stop it.
It's phenomenal, huh?
Curmudgeon.
You know what? You're absolutely fascinating to listen to. I mean,
Thank you.
you really are a wealth of information.
Keep going while he's interrupting.
So more about that kind of baby food world. It's not a new concept, but as with all the gadgets that have been created for parents now, there's a wipe warmer, and I always joke, like, when are you going to need to use warm wipes on your baby? What do you do on the side of the road when they've exploded out of their diaper? You don't have a wipe warmer. Are you going to just sit there and warm it up? No, you got to get the poop off them. So there are so many things that are non-essential in the parenting world of just things that they've created because we have so many parents that aren't sure what to do, and so it's a very vulnerable market, and businesses see that and they
take advantage of it.
Yeah, and they're just marketing something to creating a product and creating that you need a need for it.
Right.
And there's very little things regarding children that you really, really need. And so the baby food is not something that is an essential piece that you don't have to do.
Right.
It saves the parents a lot of money. It saves them a lot of time. And one of the main benefits for my moms is that we want you to sit down and eat with your child. Don't spend the whole meal feeding them and then mom gets to eat a cold plate of food. We want to do this together. You're eating, the baby's eating. We want them to model what you're doing. So they want to see everybody eating at the same time. So it's a big incentive for mothers, and you're only preparing one meal for the whole family. So
It makes it so much easier.
yeah, on your time. And now, but you don't just stop that. You keep doing that through all the phases. As I'm making something for breakfast, we're all eating that same thing for breakfast. I'm not going to make one kid a grilled cheese, and another person's having a turkey sandwich, and I'm over here eating a salad. That's 3 times the amount of work for me to do. And frankly, I don't have time for that.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
So, and everybody gets, everybody eats the same thing.
And it's really just about establishing those patterns of normalcy of what's your family norm. They only need to fit, your baby only needs to fit into your world. It's not going to mimic this mom over here or this mom on social media, whatever her lifestyle is like. The children just need to fit into your lifestyle. So that can look different from family to family. And that's like why I like to do those hands-on workshops. So I can sit down, okay, you're a working mom, you're a working dad. How can we tailor this to your family? Okay, over here I have a stay-at-home mom. Here's some strategies that you can do. You're going to have a lot more different chances of opportunity for feeding than the other one, but how can we both make it work?
I want you to focus a little bit more on the working mom.
Mm-hmm.
How do you structure that working mom? Because mom goes to work, dad goes to work.
Mm-hmm.
There's football practice. There's dance class. How do you structure that?
Yeah, so you have to have that conversation of what is your priority? What does your long-term family picture look like? Because I'm working with parents that have all had a brand new baby. So a lot of times they do have older kids, but now their world's already been flipped around because they have a new infant, and that changes everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you've had those patterns of busy late nights. Is that something you want to continue to do, or do you want to step back? Are you feeling too stressed with all those evening activities? You don't have to do them. You have that, jurisdiction in your life that you don't have to sign up for everything unless you want to. So stepping back and saying, what is your priority for your family? Do you want to make mealtimes a priority and this lifestyle? Then how can we juggle that? So a lot of my working families, they attend the classes. A lot of them bring their childcare providers with them to come to my classes. So if they're doing an in-home daycare, then that educator is there with them and can
Mm-hmm.
learn how can they copy this feeding philosophy and take it with them so that they have another adult doing this for them. And then we do some pace setting on when they serve their meals. The babies are babies, so they don't know if they have supper food and breakfast time. Maybe mom can have breakfast with their babies each morning. They go to work a little bit later. So we can offer them last night's dinner for breakfast, or we make the meal ahead of time and we make whatever.
Okay.
You put the baby to bed and then you make your dinner, you save that plate of food and then offer that to your baby the next day while you still haven't made your own supper yet. But taking that time to sit down and eat with them, eat something while they're eating. It doesn't have to be identical. It doesn't have to be a full meal, but sit down and prioritize that 15 minutes with your child. And maybe the only 15 minutes you really get to engage with them because you come home from work and then you have to feed them and you got to give them a bath and then their bed and then it all starts over. So it can be really crunched. So we just kind of try, where is this window? Where do you have 10 minutes to spend with the baby? And let's prioritize food then.
How do you deal with things like birthday parties and taking, let's say the child, you have your routine and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and you try to make sure that they're healthy foods and that,
Yeah.
and your next door neighbor's got a birthday party and they're not serving any healthy foods. They're serving everything from Chick-fil-A to whatever else, that's, chips and dip and
Bring your own baby carrots.
yeah, no baby carrots.
That would be
I
a
mean,
choking hazard.
Right. But they're serving all kinds of junk
Yeah.
food,
Mhm.
and you haven't introduced your child to junk food yet. So how do you handle all of that?
Well, it really depends on the child's age. So the Academy of Pediatrics recommends no added sugars under the age of 2. Okay. Most people don't abide by that.
Right.
But a really good guideline is if the child is under 1, we want to avoid all sweets, all added sugar. Real food would be fine. If there's any fresh fruit, you could bring your own fruit to serve for the child. You can bring your own food. They're a young infant. You could bring their own food if it's not appropriate food, or if it's maybe it may not even be safe for the child to eat. A young infant could not,
Right.
safely eat a large chicken nugget or something like that. So you could bring your own food, and then you have to see that what a child eats at one mealtime is just a snapshot of the entire day. We're looking at what did they eat this entire week. Every meal is not going to be perfect. Every meal may not include a fruit or a vegetable because sometimes it's not realistic. But maybe you would prioritize at dinner time, you have 2 vegetable options, or make sure that their snack after they get home from the party, because most kids never actually eat very much in a party anyway. They have 1 bite of pizza, 1 bite of a cupcake. They come home and they're starving. You just had a meal at that party. Why didn't you eat? And they didn't, because their priority is fun, is to play. And as adults, our priority is when's the next meal? Where are we going to eat lunch? When is, dinner time? But their priority is to have fun. And so you don't want to make it a big deal to make your child and force them to sit and eat a meal when all their friends are playing. So you really just not make it a big deal. If they eat, here's your chance to eat. This is your chance. We'll have a snack when we get home. But really not putting too much pressure on one individual meal to represent their whole diet. There's a day of different, there are going to be ebb and flows throughout the weeks.
Now, you also have a whole lifestyle with this coin.
Mhm.
Sleeping, water intake,
Mhm.
all of that. So how does that whole picture fit together?
So yes, it's not just the food you're eating. It's how do you model those health behaviors yourself. So a lot of times when I talk to parents about, okay, you had a baby, you're going to have to change some of your behaviors. They're coming to me because they're wanting to do better for themselves. So you're going to have to incorporate physical activity. That's just a part of our life that we need to have. So we have to talk about how can you incorporate exercise or just movement into your life. And why are we exercising? Mommy is exercising because it helps her feel better. It helps her relax. And she needs to be strong. For her muscles need to be strong. If I'm strong, then I can take care of you for a really long time. And that's what I want to do. So I have to be away for an hour so that I can make sure that I'm healthy, so that I can be your mom. I can be your grandma. I can be your great grandma maybe someday, so I can do these things. So we have to, as parents, make sure we're prioritizing our own health so that we can prioritize our kids.
Are there any practical tips for adequate sleep for children?
I am a big proponent of sleep and sleep training, and it's kind of controversial when you get to that health food world. Don't mesh in that same mindset with sleeping and co-sleeping and all of those things. I was very strict about sleeping. Sleep is very important for children, and they're just like sometimes they go through phases of not wanting to eat a certain food. They go through phases where they don't want to sleep either. But we have to think that, okay, we can't let them make that decision. There is sleep. It has to happen. You need it. I need it. Everybody needs it. So sleep is a big priority. And there's been a lot of research showing that how much sleep influences our weight, specifically as adults, but really in children too. It's when their brain can rest. It's when their body can refuel. It's when their digestion is happening. So much is happening for their bodies to reset during that rest time. So it is super important for kids to get adequate sleep. And we start sleep training. There's a book called Baby Wise, and it's a sleep training manual. It came out a long time ago, probably. I say a long time ago. I would say probably in the 90s. Maybe even 2000s.
That was
a long time ago.
A long time ago.
It's a new old thing. But man, it worked like textbook for our kids. That a lot of times kids don't get adequate sleep, or they're not taking adequate naps because they've been awake for way too long. And there's lots of people I follow on social media that do work specifically in sleep training and how it can impact everything.
Is sleep training?
Sleep training.
Real quick, because we only have a few more minutes left.
So the Baby Wise is what we did, and it's a pattern throughout the day. You eat, you play, then you sleep. Okay, so that really aligns well with this baby-led weaning. So an infant, you eat, They have their bottles of milk or they're nursing, then they play, and then they go to sleep. So from that point forward, we're teaching them that we're not feeding them to go to sleep. That's not the purpose of the food that we feed our babies. We're feeding them so that they have the energy to play, and then they'll go to sleep. Versus traditionally, we feed our babies to fall asleep, and they're not getting fed enough food because they're not prioritizing that mealtime because they're drifting off to sleep through that. So that philosophy sets them up for success with the real purpose of food. The food is to fuel our body, to give us energy. So if we eat, we wake up from our nap, we eat, and then we play, and then we learn to go to bed by ourselves without being put to sleep. You lay the baby down when they're awake before they're overly tired, and they learn to put themselves to sleep because they also have to do that every night for the rest of their life.
It makes a lot of sense.
It's
That
a cool
does make
philosophy.
a lot of sense.
Mhm.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around. There's warmers for baby wipes.
There are. It's a non-essential. I can give you a list of things that are essential, but that one is not.
All right, now I
Well,
want
wait a minute. A lot of what you're discussing here today,
Mhm.
that's in your book.
I don't talk a lot about sleep in my book or the baby wipes, but yes.
Oh,
All the other stuff, yes. In the Baby Led Weaning Baby Food Cookbook, in that at the beginning part, we explain, really get into the nitty gritty details of how to do baby led weaning. Yeah.
okay.
All right, now publishing tip or writing tips for cookbooks. 5 most important things. Niche expertise. Showcase in-depth the knowledge and passion for your specialty. Establish credibility, which you've done. Okay. Unique angle, which you've done. You have a unique angle as far as being it's
Mhm.
for babies and
Mhm.
it's for young parents to be able to feed their babies in a healthy manner.
Mhm.
Okay. Offer a distinctive perspective or approach that sets your specialty cookbook apart. Target audience precision. Clearly define your target audience within the niche for tailored recipes. Ingredient specificity. Be meticulous about specialty ingredients, providing alternatives when necessary. So that's really probably more in line for cultural things, like avocados. Incorporate cultural or pate or escargot. Incorporate cultural or historical context, adding depth to the specialty theme. Or for babies, making sure that their baby carrots are not full blown carrots. All right. So, why'd you start Square One Wellness?
So as
We have 4 minutes.
okay. So as I found my direction of what I wanted to be doing
We have 3 minutes.
under my business.
You lost a minute.
Oh man, that was quick. Daylight savings. So I needed, I've taught fitness classes since college and I still do that. So that Square One just really means back to foundational pieces for everybody, whether I'm talking to parents or infants or, older adults, that you really have to get to the basics of health, that there's not just a secret magic option. And it's funny. My husband was talking about this the other day, that there's a video going around talking to a dietitian. What do I need to do to be healthy? And they tell them the answers, and the person just gets mad. They're like, "Well, I know that already." You're like, "I know you know that, but the hard part is doing it and really implementing it." So a lot of times, a part of our job is to be there and walk hand in hand with the person. So I have parents reach out to me all the time. Yes, I learned all this information in one of your workshops, but now my baby's, 17 months old and they're doing this, and this, and they're totally different from when they're 6 months old. So being there to show them all the different phases as you change, and having that accountability, somebody to check in with. In the group fitness world, I'm there exercising with my, clients. They're there, I'm there. We have that accountability to meet together. Hey, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m. They know where I am, and they know that they're going to meet somebody else that's also going to be doing what they're doing. So having somebody in the trenches in whatever avenue if you're looking for somebody to make those changes with, you have to go where the healthier people are if you want to add those patterns to your lifestyle.
How do we contact you?
Yes, I have a Facebook page, Square One Wellness, and I'm also on Instagram, Square One Wellness RD, and then I have a website, www.squareonewellness.net.
What is your favorite recipe in your book? Number one recipe
number
that you like
one
to do the
recipe.
best.
From the BLW Baby Food Cookbook, one of my favorite recipes is the creamy Brussels sprouts. Probably they are Brussels sprouts. You cook them in an iron skillet with some garlic and onions, and then you take a good splash of heavy cream on top, and then some
Ooh.
shredded white cheddar. Stick it back in the oven and bake, and it's all bubbly and gooey, and it's really good.
How do we find your books?
They are for sale on Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, and then I have them in lots of local shops in Cape Girardeau too.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to Author's Edge. Thank you so much, Ellen, for being with us today.
Yes.
Tune in again next week for more tips, resources, and your favorite conversations. Our next guest will be Lonnie Whitaker, and we will be chatting about his writing adventures, including his children's book series about a rescued tomcat named Mulligan. Till then, see you around the inkwell.